when you and Uncle Don first met.
When we first met.
Yeah, which would have been back in grade school, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he was, how was it? I come from Marion. My dad lost his job, and we moved down here. And I was in the 2A when they moved me down, when we come down here.
No, it's 2A.
2A and 2B and 2A, and then 3.
Oh, like
They used to go like that.
Okay.
Like three, yeah, I almost forgot about that. And after I come down here and I was in school for a few days, they moved me up because Marion schools. And at the time, Don and I was in the same class.
Oh, were you?
When I come down here, I was in the class with him. Then they moved me up a half a grade because our schools in Marion were ahead of these schools. So I was always a half a grade. See, I graduated in 44 from high school. He graduated in 45. That's the way it worked out. We went to summer school and cut some of it off. But that's when I first knew him. And then I wasn't, I see him in grade school, but I wasn't in his class. We were separated. And then after we got out of grade school in junior high, he went to tech, and so did I. And I didn't see him, I'd run into him, but didn't see him much.
But you had that one date come about.
Okay.
Okay.
The one, I think it was our, junior or senior, it was in the summer. And he was there to take classes, and you know what? I don't know why, that he was in summer school. I was in there because I played for the band at Tech, and then that summer the teacher asked me, he says, how about coming to summer school and playing for the band, and we'll pay for it. I said, okay. Well, the first day I went there, here stood Don on the steps of that arsenal in front of the Tech High School. And so when I went to play in the band, I took another class. I thought, I'm over there, I'll take another class. So I took sociology, I think. And Don was too. So we were in that class together. So I did see him, that summer. And then he asked me for a date. And we went downtown to the movies on the bus. And that was the last date I had with him. Never saw him anymore until, he graduated from high school, and then I graduated first in 44, and he graduated in 45. Then he went off the Navy, and I never did see him anymore. I know one funny thing that happened. I rode the bus every day, a lot of times with Carmen, and this girl got on, and her name was Lois Larman. Carmen would know her. And no, that was another one. He was dating Nelda Carver. Carver. I got on the bus, and she was telling me, she says, I've been dating Don Bauermeister. And I said, oh. And she said, he's coming home in a week, and she was so excited. And he was supposed to be home, I think, on a 30-day leave. Evidently, he told her he was coming home. Well, time went by. I got on the bus one day, and I saw her. And I said, how was when he come home on leave? I didn't see him. He never got a hold of her. And she was so, because she was crazy about him. And I was feeling so sorry for her, and trying to tell her something, make her feel better, but it didn't. And then, I don't know the time. Well, he was dating that Dolores Newman, too, that was across the street from me. And she really, and her mother really liked him. But he come home on leave, and he was down at Don Tuttle's. Carmen knows who Don Tuttle was, and Don Tuttle says, I'm going to call Lois Ellsworth for a date. And Don didn't say anything. This is awful. He went straight home and called me and beat him to it.
He did.
Yes. And I tell you, Don Tuttle was really mad for a while, but they become friends again. But we went on a picnic. You know, Wiener Roast went someplace, and Carmen and Dick, they were always with us. And so we dated that time, but then, you know, he'd go back on leave, and every time he'd come in, he'd ask Carmen who he could call. The problem was all the girls were getting married.
Oh.
I was the latest one getting married. Well, the girl that he was really dating was in Tech High School. Her name was Lois. I can't remember her last name, but they called her Bubbles. She was in Tech Choir with me.
Bubbles.
She was Bubbles too, and she was in the Tech Choir with me. And I guess he dated her a lot. And the first leave he had, he went over to look for her, and she was married. Oh, God. And so finally, he called me. He was home on leave, and wanted me to go, I think, downtown to the movies. As usual, I got all dressed up, high heels, you know, dressed up. He comes over and he says, I've decided we'll go to a drive-in theater. So we went, remember that Pendleton Pike? Were you still around when that Pendleton Pike was here?
It's still there.
Is it there?
But it's all
That was the
dilapidated.
first one.
It was torn down now.
Oh, yeah. Well, we went there, and we saw kind of a funny movie. And, you know, I hadn't been with him, really, much for years, and we just had more fun. He was a good date. He was funny, and he was easy, comfortable to be with. And that's the night that he asked me, he was smoking and asked me if I smoked. And that's when I told him only cigars. That's when he started bringing me the cigar home to let me know he was home.
Didn't you say something about that he'd leave it on the front porch or something? He'd leave the cigar on the front porch?
He'd leave.
To let you know.
He'd sneak in. He usually drove home at night when he'd come home, and he'd come over and I think put it in my screen door or something. Then I knew he was home. Yeah. And you know what's the funniest thing? He would have had a fit if I'd have ever smoked. No kidding. He would have had a fit. He didn't like to see women smoke. You know why? He said it took their feminine side away from them.
Oh, okay.
And they didn't smell good. Oh, he was so funny. But anyway, then that was, well, you know, that's when you read the letter we got in the fuss about. I don't know if that was Memorial Day weekend or not. And then he said, I'll write you. And I never did hear from him. And that's the letter that you read, and it was clear up, what, in June or July? And he was apologizing.
And how long had he dated you before that happened?
Not too long. We didn't date too long. It seemed like it just went, of course he was gone, and it was just, he'd come home for weekends, and when he went in the Masons, he had a 30-day leave, and I didn't see him all that time. But no, we went ice skating out on Lake Sullivan, and that's the first time I met his mother. I knew his mother, but we went out ice skating. The ice was real wet, and we were falling down and rolling around, and my hair was soaking wet. I was soaking wet, and we come home, and he says, "Oh, I'm going to take you down to meet Mom." And I was just a mess. And so we went in, she's sitting there, Dick and your grandpa was gone, I don't know where, she was all alone. But she, you know, I got to visit with her a little bit, but I knew her from the neighborhood, but not really. And we went ice skating. And you know, I can't remember how all of it's been so long, Ricky. I can't remember the order that everything went in. But, yeah, we really didn't. When you think of, that's the reason I wrote him that letter and told him when he was coming home, he was getting out in September from
Yeah.
the Navy. And I wrote him a letter and said, I think that we should date a while because we hadn't really been together. Oh, he got mad. He didn't like that. But we did end up. He come home in September of 49 and we got married in June of 50.
Huh.
Yeah.
So you
And
dated over a 2-year period, but you didn't get to see each other a whole lot because he was in the Navy.
that's it. We weren't together. You know, we really weren't together a lot. Just sometimes he'd get it like that. Memorial Day was 3 days, but usually it was. But he started coming home more often, flying home on weekends. But I know when he bought that 41 Chevy from his dad, he was thrilled to death because he took it back over there. And you know, I think he paid his dad $1,000 for that Chevy. And he was thrilled to death. And then, of course, I told you that he was taking his friend downtown to the train station, forgot he had it, and went back
On the bus.
base on the bus. And he had to go back to get his car. He was forgetful like you, Ricky. Awful. Awful. You couldn't count on him. You could.
Well, tell me about that time, or the times that he left you standing on the corner and got off work.
Yeah, that was in the summer, and he was working at McBroom. You know, he worked for that McBroom Electric.
Mm-hmm.
So when he got home, they hired him to go up there. They lived up at 72nd Street, beautiful home, and he painted their walls. He took care of their yard, and he taxied their colored maid around a lot, and really got acquainted with her. And when he did that, he'd tell me, "I'll pick you up over front of Blocks tonight," because he'd be coming from the north. He didn't get there. And I'd have to go, I'd call him. I don't know where I called from. And when I got him on the phone, he'd go, "Oh, yeah." "I'll be right there," he said. Here he'd come. I don't know how many times he did that. He did that to Carmen one time when he was in dental school. And I think she'd had some wisdom teeth pulled or something. And he told her, he said, "Come over at the house when we get home, and I want to take a look at us." So she come over, she waited. Of course, I didn't know he'd made those arrangements. He called me that day and said that Dick and Penny, this is the first time I met them, they had invited us over for dinner, and they lived out in Speedway. And so, I don't know whether he come up and got me or I took a bus out, I don't know, but we had dinner with him, spent the evening. Carmen was waiting at our house. He forgot, he told her, she was talking about that the other day. Oh, you know, she could have killed him. You just could not count on him. And you know, we lived in that old junky apartment. And the hot water heater was right in the kitchen. And it was one automatic. When you got through taking your bath, and everybody did, you turned it off.
Oh, okay.
I'd go to work, because I went first and then he went. I'd sit there and think, I bet that building's going to be blown right off of us. I just figured he wouldn't remember to turn that water heater off. But he did. But it worried me every time.
You had a lot of fun in that old apartment.
Oh my God, yeah. Yes, and you should have seen it. Oh boy. But he would put me up on his shoulder. I was thin, you know. He'd throw me up on his shoulders and go running through the apartment real fast, and I didn't duck and about killed myself. Putting my forgot to duck and hit my head.
What, on the doors and stuff?
He was always picking me up and throw me up on his shoulders, and then we had a closet. The ceilings were 12 or 13 inches tall, and we had a closet, of course, went up that high. We didn't have a ladder. He'd put me up on his shoulders and hand stuff to me to put up. Real. He just pitched me around like a flour sack. Pick me up and run. But Yeah, you know, he wasn't real big at that time, but I was really 98 pounds. I was really hide my shoes out on the fluorescent lights of the drugstore.
Oh, you lived above the drugstore. That's right.
Yeah.
You
Oh
hide your
my.
shoes out there.
Yes, yes. And we were in bed one night and a car ran right into that building. Right below where we were sleeping. Ran into the drugstore. Oh my God. About threw us out of bed. And
What'd you do?
oh, we got up and we were hanging out the window watching, and the police were there, and but they, you know, they repaired it. But no, think how that would be, and that building was a mess. Tucker's, was it Tucker's drugstore? I think it was Tucker's.
Was that at the corner of State and Raymond?
No, it was a corner of Cottage in Shelby.
Cottage and Shelby, okay.
Yeah, not far from the boulevard. But that about scared us to death. And one thing, and I would have died before I did it. First thing he did when we moved up there was buy a big rope and fix it so in case the thing caught on fire. He could throw it out.
Rope back.
I said, you can go down it, but I'm not going down it. I'll die first. Oh my God. And your grandma Bauermeister, she cried when we rented that place because it was really a fire trap. It really was, Ricky, because we had a oil stove in the living room, pretty little thing, and there was a big oil tank right out in the hallway beside our kitchen, and they delivered oil up there. Here was all that oil up in that apartment. And then we had a little pot-bellied stove that my grandpa gave us, put it in the kitchen, and then that hot water heater, one faucet on our sink in the kitchen, one faucet, cold water. And in the bathroom, you pulled a chain to flush the toilet. Oh, the dirtiest thing you'd ever seen when we moved in. And Grandma Bauermeister, she just about had a fit. And hot in the summer, Wayne and Barbara Beck used to come over in their convertible and take us for a ride at night to cool off. Because, see, they were all working and they were really getting out and living it up. Here we were. But that apartment, Don hung wallpaper. Pappy come over and helped him. And Don and I went down to Fountain Square and bought wallpaper for 10 cents a roll. It was thin.
Wow.
And then the big high ceilings, and they were on walkboards. He come down to help him paper it. First roll they put up, they run their arm through it, pasting it and trying to, all the cussing you never heard. And so we bought, I still can remember that, big purple flowers, what kind of reddish purple, in the living room, big green flowers in the bedroom, and then we had little flowered yellow wallpaper, and then we bought linoleum, and then we bought a used rug, and a used kitchen table and chairs. But you know, when we got that thing finished, it was pretty. And your grandma just loved to come up there because it was so cozy.
And here she thought it was a fire trap.
I know. But the rooms were so big, we had the rug out in the middle of the living room floor and all our furniture, and we could run around all the furniture, big wide space, and we used to go chasing each other all around, all that furniture, and then the bedrooms where he hung the rope out, or put the rope by the window. But then there was a room, it had a clothesline strung up when we moved in. And he built a fan. Oh my God, I bet it was It was big propellers on it to cool the place off. And I tell you, it about sucked you through that. And it was loud. Oh my God. I wonder whatever happened to that thing.
Probably sound like an airplane coming through.
And had clotheslines. We had that big fan in there. And every time we'd have company, he'd take them in there for something. It was the gosh awfulest room. It was awful, awful. But I tell you what, we really had fun. That had lots of company every Saturday night. And Carmen Dick, they can tell you, come over and we'd play Triple E and have food. And we just really had a good time up there. But one time, he took a bath after I had left for work. It was in the winter. And I come home and I went in there and here was a washcloth and it was only hanging by a little piece of the washcloth. It was frozen.
It was frozen. Is that cold?
It was so cold. I thought, how's that washcloth hanging on there?
I was surprised it didn't freeze and break pipes.
Oh my God. Can you believe that? And then there were bats in our stairway. Carmen Dick can tell you about that too. Yeah, there were bats and it was all enclosed in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was the darkest, awfulest place you ever did see. And you went up those steps and then when you went in our door, here was that little room that had the oil tank and all that, and then you go in our kitchen. But it was, when we got done, he painted all the floors, painted all the woodwork, and it was really nice when we got done. But I know Tammy she come home real mad one evening and griping about something. I says, oh, Tammy, it'll get better. She says, you can say that. There you are sitting in that lounge chair watching television and no cares in the world. I said, Tammy, when we lived in that apartment when we first got married, you'd think, I said, you wouldn't have even lived there. Made me so mad. I think she thought we sprouted like this or something.
Yeah.
She didn't get it. But that apartment, and then it was $13 a month.
$13 a month.
And Don Tuttle's grandparents, they were 80-something, lived up there. And we could have kicked ourselves. They left most of their furniture. Big, beautiful, this old furniture. Of course, we didn't appreciate it. We didn't know good from bad. And so Don I was working. He got his mother up there one day. And he had rented a truck. And they moved all that furniture in that truck. And she says, Don, where are you going with this? He said, I don't know where he was going to take it. But he got up there on New York Street, right next to the telephone company. If I'd looked out the window, I would have seen him. And some colored guy come along in a great big truck, and he says, hey, son, where you going with all that furniture? Don says, you want it? Yeah. They were out there on New York Street downtown moving that furniture. That's
So you got rid of it that way?
And got all over. I thought, if I had looked out the window and saw him out there, I tell you. But anyway, we got rid of all that furniture. And then the only thing, I had a bedroom suite, when that was another thing. We decided we'd buy a bedroom suite before we got married, and he would send so much money home a month to pay for it. Neither one of us had any money, so we did. And we had that new bedroom suite, and then we went down to Fisher's, and we brought our couch and a chair to go with it. And then we bought used rugs and bought used everything. But it was really nice when we, got to think how noisy it was. Shelby Street, all the traffic going through there. And I bet the people at the telephone company, they probably thought I'd married an educated nut. Because we'd be out on field trips and we'd go to Shelby and, I said, there's where we live. I bet they looked at that place and thought, oh my God, But you know what, Ricky? We were as happy as little larks. We really were, but there was so many things that happened to us. You know, it was always, I think about that furniture moving and I just can't believe it. Then he was in pre-med and I come home one day and my ironing board was set up in the kitchen and he had a little baby pig laying there. That was his.
Dissecting.
Yeah, I didn't know it. I just come home and here was that pig laying on my.
He wasn't even
He
there.
never told me ahead of time. Yeah, here was that pig laying there. Oh my God! I tell you, when I look back, it was just like a cartoon.
Never a dull moment.
No, and you know, he picked me up at the telephone company once in a while after he'd come from McBroom's because he'd work in their yard. And he picked me up one day and he didn't have a shirt on. He was all bare. And so we proceeded to go through town, got over there somehow by the where the city county building is. And a few blocks before that, every time we would come to a stop sign, that guy behind us would bump into us. Real easy. And about the third bump, Don was getting mad. Why would that be? Every time that we come to a stop, he'd kind of tap the back end of our car. So we got up to Washington Street. I don't know what street that was that went through there. And Don jumps out of the car, and he goes back. What the hell do you think you're doing? Oh, he just really bawled him out, and I thought, well, if one of my friends come by here, and here he is out there naked to the waist and fighting with that guy driving behind us. But he was right, that guy I don't know why he was bumping him. But everything, you know, it was just one big laugh after another. Did Carmen ever tell you at the time that we had an ice storm and everything was covered? The streets were covered with ice. Nobody was out. And Don and I put on our ice skates there at Cottage and Shelby and ice skated over to Carmen's house. She opened the door and she couldn't believe we were there. Come on out, well, ice, because their street was just solid ice. So she got her ice skates on. Dick was in the service then. He was and we were ice skating out there in the street. And then we ice skated clear back home. Can you believe? I can't believe that. That's a long distance. I forgot about that thing being on.
Well,
Here I'm swinging my hands
well,
around.
don't worry about it.
But that was our years, and that just more funny things happened when we lived up in that apartment. But we really had fun. And everybody come there, you know, because it was big. And we
Have parties up there and everything.
oh my God. And then it must have been a year before he got out at Bloomington. We found that house on Windermere Street. We lived up in the apartment 3 years.
3 years.
3 years. And then we were driving around and saw that little house. And it was $11,000.
Is that what it was?
And they just built it.
Huh.
Built it. So we thought and talked, and we got the real estate guy. And so then we got Grandma and Grandpa Bauermeister. My folks didn't know anything about it. They'd never owned a house. So we got them, and they come over and looked at it. And so he said he needed some earnest money and didn't say how much. We give him $50. And he took it and didn't say anything. We didn't know the difference. And I guess maybe it was Grandpa Bauermeister asked that guy, you know, he says, he's going to school and she's working. I feel like they're a good risk. That's what he told. And so we got the house, and it was on Veterans, I think a Veterans thing. Now, Grandpa Bauermeister signed his name if we didn't pay the payments. You know, he'd be stuck with it, but he never did because the payments were only $68 a month. I can remember that so plain.
Well, that was a far sight increase from the apartment with $13
It was,
a month.
but Don got $100 GI money from when he was in the Navy. And by that time, I was making pretty good money because I'd been there a long time. And so we saved some money when we lived up in that apartment because it was cheap living. But Don got real mad. He totally rewired that whole apartment. And he no more did it. Then that guy raised our rent to $23.
Hey,
Don was so mad.
I'm going to have to change discs.
Oh,
We're
heck,
just about
have I
there.
talked? Oh, well, you want to quit and listen later?
Oh, no. I want to keep going, but I just want to change discs. Hang on a sec.
I didn't know I was on.
No, you're on now because I want you
Oh.
to tell that story again.
Where'd I quit? Oh,
Well-
when we moved.
How did he turn you upside down? You were getting ready to do what?
Go to the Eastern Star.
You're getting ready to go to the Eastern Star, was he there or?
He was there,
Okay.
and I walked in I was back get cleaned up.
Oh, okay.
Walked in the living room, and he come running in there and picked me up and turned me upside down. But I really didn't get after him. I really didn't. I was upset because, you know, I had my hair all combed and everything. But there was something about him, Ricky. Now, when I got mad at him, I could have pushed him down that basement stairs. But there was something about him, he was so funny. And I thought,
So you were all gussied up, and he runs in and turns you upside down.
upside down. I had a dress on and ready to go to Eastern. And I'll bet I never told anybody when I went to Eastern Star. I was so used to stuff. He was just something else. But there was something about him, but about like you. And I've told Carmen this. You're a big guy, and so was he. But you're like a little teddy bear. Really. And you're so pleasant. And he was so, you can't picture this, but he was always real sweet, you know. And when he did that, and I remember, I was upset, but I really didn't blow my stack and go, you know, get into it. But I can remember it real plain. Yeah.
What's other funny things he did like that to you?
Well, I started telling you over on Windemar Street, and you know we had that window right above the tub, and we had invited that Bill Dudley and his wife over for dinner, and so I hurried up to get cleaned up. He was outside watering the flowers, I think. I don't know what he was doing. Stuck that hose through the screen window. Got my hair soaking wet.
And you weren't planning on that.
Oh, and we didn't have hair dryers at that time. You know, here I was, that company was coming over. I heard him say, Lois, here come all that water. Because it's summer and we had the window, you know.
Yeah.
He turned that hose, and that bathtub was right below the window. He turned that hose in and hit my head, and my hair was soaking wet. I don't even know how. I don't remember how I come out of that, but they come over, we had dinner. I don't know. But, you know, he'd just do that stuff, and I don't think that he'd get in big trouble for it. Well, he didn't usually, but I was pretty upset that night because oh my God.
I know he's always thinking of something funny to do.
He was always, and I'll tell you what, when we first got married, I was kind of set on brand names for stuff in the grocery store. And there was a Heinz and I think a Campbell's soup at that time. And I said, I think it was Heinz I liked better. So I come home one evening from work and he had a bowl of Campbell's soup and a bowl of Heinz soup. And told me to sit down and see if I could tell the difference between them. And of course I couldn't, but I was always making these big statements. I like this one better, and he was always proving to me I couldn't. And Pepsi and Coke. I could now.
Yeah, I can tell the difference.
And I don't remember if I did then, but he had a glass of Pepsi and a glass of Coke, and I don't remember how I called that one. But he was always, he thought it was funny, you know. Now, let me see if you can tell the difference. And he'd go to all that trouble. He'd go to all kinds of trouble for a joke. That's the reason I never got married again. I couldn't find anybody like that.
Well, what's another funny joke he played on you?
Oh,
Well, tell that one you did on him about where you were sitting out here.
oh, the day there was one day that he went in work at noon,
Mm-hmm.
and it was beautiful out, and he kept saying, "Ooh, I don't want to go to work. I wish I could stay home." And of course he had to go. And so while he went down to get the car, I went out there and I sat with my feet swinging over. And he pulled out of the car and he just turned around and pointed out, and I yelled at him and I said, "Hey, now who's the stupid one? You went to college all those years. I didn't go to college. Look who's staying home in this beautiful weather." He stopped the car and he had his head on his steering wheel and he was just laughing and laughing. Yeah, I'd get some things on him too. And then the day that I went out there when he's driving down and I went out there in the yard and mooned him. Oh my, he come in that night, he said, "You stupid shit." I tell you, he was fun to play jokes on. And I was always trying to, think of something.
You know, one of the things that you said that impressed me is that he never came home empty-handed.
No, when he went out to go to the hardware store or something, he always brought me something home. It might have been one of those big candy bars because he knew I liked candy. And the last thing he bought me was those 3 ducks out there. And I'd kill anybody if they broke one. And that was the last thing when he went out because he was sick at that time. But he hadn't been home yet, and I walked by that window and I saw those 3 little ducks. And he had gone, I think, to that flower shop down there on Madison because we bought the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the little ones were and here he come with those. And he was just, Ricky, he was a mess when he got in, just moving those out of the car there. Mm. But that was the last thing. And everybody in my family knows if they ever break one of those, their life isn't worth it. I bring them up out of the yard every winter and put them up, where they won't get hurt through the winter. Mm. But that's really important to me.
Yeah.
But that's the trouble. I hang on to stuff like that.
Well, we get sentimental attachments. It reminds us of...
Yeah, and those ducks really... But even when we were on Windemar Street, and he was working nights and I was working days, I think. I don't know. But I come home and there'd be a bump in our bed and he'd bought me something and he'd put it under the bed covers and there'd be this big bump. And he was real, he gave the impression, he just didn't give a darn, and he was just so, you know how he was, but he wasn't like that.
One of the funny things I remember was when you loaded us all up in the car and we were getting ready to go to the Longacre.
Yeah.
And you went up to Lester's door.
Oh, I tell you, I was never so mad.
What was he doing? He was parking the car in the way or something like that?
Mother was working down at the laundromat.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take something into her house. And he had cars parked in front of her house and in her driveway. And it made me mad because he was just taking up everything. And
I think you told him before not to do that.
I don't know if we had or not, but I was kicking on the door. You remember that? Yeah. In my bathing suit. Yeah. Oh my God, I was mad. Yeah. That's it. When I get mad, I just go crazy. Well, Don and I had a big fight one time, and they're at Windemar Street. The only big fight we ever had. I think I told you about it. He come in from work, and he says, I want to see our insurance papers for something. And I went back and I looked, and I didn't have them. Oh, he just hit the ceiling. It was just ridiculous how mad he got. And I was getting ready to go to the beauty shop. And so I picked up my keys and let him stand there and yell, and I walked out. And got in the car, and fella was chained out there by that step on the, and I can't back up good. And I backed up out of that driveway, I bet 40 miles an hour. I was so mad. Didn't even think of that dog, but he was okay. I just went out of there in a storm of dust. And I got about, down to Southport Road, and I looked up, and here come that Corvette behind me. And he whizzed up beside me, and he says, pull over, pull over. Well, I did. And he got out of the car, and he stuck his head in the window, and he says, I'm sorry. And he says, why don't you come home? Don't go get your hair done. I says, no, I'm going to get my hair done. And so I went on down there, and had my hair fixed when I got home. That really made me mad. What he acted like that I just didn't take care of anything right.
Uh-huh.
That really burnt me up because I did. Then he would never had told me, but he went down to the office and those papers were down there.
He had them the whole time?
He had them. Yeah. And he wouldn't have had to told me that, but he did. He told me that he'd found them down there. But I tell you, that really made me mad because I really worked to keep things in order because that's the way he liked. Now, he wasn't fussy about the house, and he threw around and he was sloppy. But he was fussy about paperwork and
office-y kind of things.
Then you heard Carmen Dixon telling you, I think, that I didn't pay the phone bill down to the office for a whole year.
No, I didn't hear about that.
I thought I was divorced by then. Oh my God. Well, I took care of all the office business, wrote all the bills, I did everything. Talked to the tax man. I took care of all of it. That's when we had that room fixed like that. And he called me bright and early one morning after he got to work, and he says, Lois, look up this phone bill for such and such a month. And I went in there. I didn't have one phone bill for that whole year. You can't imagine how I felt looking, and I couldn't find any of them. So I went back and I told him, I said, we haven't gotten a phone bill for a year. And he didn't get upset. I thought he just hit the ceiling. So he called the telephone company, and they hadn't sent bills. It had been an oversight. They hadn't, but I should have noticed that when I was paying the bills. And I didn't. And it was $700 and some. And he come home and he says, well, here's what we owe. And it was $732 or something. But you know what? He never said a word about that. And I couldn't figure out why because I can't understand how I overlooked that phone bill.
You thought you were divorced.
You can't imagine.
And that was the office phone?
Yes, the office phone. But why we didn't get anything that I hadn't paid the bills. It was just a big mess.
That happens sometimes.
But with writing those bills, I should have remembered I didn't have a telephone bill. But you get caught up. That was on Windemar Street. There was just the two of them. No, was it here? I think we'd moved here. And I don't know, but that one, I'll take the whole blame for that. I don't know how I missed that. And then the one that I did that really made him mad, we were down at the office. he was down there doing his lab work, and I was doing stuff around the office, and I said, I'm going down and fill the soft water. He had a soft water down there. I said, I'm going down and put some salt in that tank. And so I went over, and this was partly his fault. I went over and picked a salt bag up, and it had been open, but I thought, well, he'd put a little bit in there. I lifted up and started pouring it. It was coal black. It was, what had he put in there? I don't know whether it was black ashes or, I don't know what, I can't remember now, I should. But coal black, it like black ashes or something. And I lifted up, saw that, and I couldn't
stop
I couldn't get it stopped. And I had all that black, whatever it was, in that salt thing. Well, we were about ready to go home, and he hit the ceiling because we had to get that back out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know anything about salt water?
Not much. But I imagine it had to be totally cleaned out.
And he didn't have anything down there to get it out with. And so he got in the car and he went down that Marion Hardware. Oh, he was mad. Oh, he was mad. And he come back and he had bought one of these little coal shovels. I used to have it standing there. Well, he bought one down there and he cut part of the handle off to dip down there and get all that stuff out. He got it all out and then put some salt in, but he shouldn't have put that in that salt bag. That was partly.
That was a disaster ready to happen.
Oh my God. But the thing is, we were always together and always working together. And here, you know, I did that. Now, if that had been me and him, I wouldn't have been that mad. I would stop and think. He does pretty good on it. Not him. He really, I don't know why he didn't get mad about the phone bill. But that's, you know, he just, well, everybody's different,
Everybody's
you know.
different.
But he just didn't get mad about that. And that was a lot. That, you know, cost a lot all at once. But I think what he did, I don't think he ever looked at why I didn't notice it. But what he looked at, I think, is they never sent us a bill. We never got a disconnect, never got anything. Never showed up till he called about it. Oh, Ricky, I'm telling you.
Well, let's get some coffee.
Oh, yeah, I forgot all about it. One weekend he started, and you know, I bet you'd know this was wrong. He tore up a sidewalk and went out, tore up a curb, getting ready to put the driveway in. Now, what's wrong about that?
I don't know.
You can't do that. You can't tear up city sidewalk. Well, anyway, he was out there with a big pick, you know, and he got it all torn up. And the sidewalk torn up, and I don't know how he did it all. I don't know what he did, but anyway, we both come home one evening. This is short. He was still either in working or in school, and we come home, and the neighbor said, "The police were here looking for you today." This is right after we moved in the neighborhood. Donna says, "Why?" And they said, "Well, because you're tearing up that sidewalk." And so the police come out and talked to him, and they said, "That's against the law to tear a city sidewalk a street and a curb." And boy, he was really, you know, he really had it all torn up. And they didn't do anything, though. They didn't fine us or anything, but he got it finished. You know, but we were really worried. We couldn't imagine, you know, when they said the police were here today looking for you. Oh my God, I tell you. But then, Mother was working down at the laundromat. You remember when she was working down there? Well, something was wrong with her chimney. I can't remember what was wrong. Don was downstairs, and he decided to go up on the roof. He had a rope because it was real steep. Well, he walked right up there.
Then he couldn't get
and
down.
He couldn't get down. And the rope, I don't know why he had it. It was down there. No, he sent me home for the rope. And he says, now pitch it up here. Well, he's clear up on the top where the chimney was. I couldn't get it up. He was just beside himself because it was, and I kept throwing it. Finally, the kids come home, and Daddy pitched it up there, and he got back down. But I think, good God. Then he found out that if he'd go down to the basement and open a little door, he could have looked up there and found out what he wanted with that chimney. But he went up on the roof. Oh my God. And it was hot, and here he was stranded up on that roof. I couldn't get the rope up there. Oh my!
I can't imagine what the kids thought when they come home. They probably never knew what they were going to find.
Oh, well, now I'll tell you one. Now your folks know this, but I don't know if they ever told you kids. He landed in jail one time.
No, I didn't know about that.
Didn't you know that?
Uh-uh.
Oh my God!
How'd he get in jail?
We had just gotten the kids. This was over on Windermere. Just gotten the kids. And I don't know if you knew it, but he was going downtown and working at a children's dentist, a place down there on welfare.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing it, And he went every Thursday morning. And so the kids and I were sitting there. He was about due home for lunch. And I got a call from the guy that run that appliance place down there at Troy and Madison, I think.
Okay.
There was an appliance store there, and he was real nice. He said, "Are you Mrs. Bauermeister?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, your husband's got trouble." I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Well, he was driving." Let me get this straight now. He was driving home from downtown working, and this guy in a plain car, and he had the top down, he had the Corvette, and this guy kept waving at him to pull over, and he was in an old junky car, and Don wasn't doing it, but finally he did, and that guy was a policeman, elderly policeman. And what did he say Don had done? I don't think he was, I don't know what he accused him of doing out on the road. But anyway, he stopped him and took him in that place, refrigerators, and I can't think of the name,
Appliance store?
Yeah, and that man was in there. And I guess, and it was right after Don had had surgery on his gallbladder, I think. He's still sore. But anyway, that guy took him in there and got real smart with him and punched him in the stomach. And Don didn't fight him back. He took him downtown, called a paddy wagon, and took him downtown in a paddy wagon. There were 2 prostitutes in there they'd picked up. No kidding. And so took him down to jail. So when that man called me, he says, "Mrs. Bauermeister, your husband was really a gentleman." He said, "If it had been me, I'd have killed that guy." He said, "I knew by looking at your husband, and he didn't mouth off or anything to him because he knew he's smart enough to know he's a policeman." He says, "But he really punched him in the stomach." And then took him downtown. And he says, "I wanted to call you to tell you so you'd know where he was." And he says, "If you need me in court, I'll be there." And he says, "Have you got any children?" I says, "Yeah, they're sitting right here. We just got them." And he says, "Well, you can bring them here for me to watch if you want to go downtown." Well, at the time, I thought, I'm not leaving those kids in there. I took them with me. And they didn't know what was going on. Went down there to the jail, and I parked, and I told the guy that was in the little building, taking your money, I said, I don't want to take these kids in there. I said, would you keep an eye on them? Well, that was more scary. I was scared to death that somebody was going to swipe them or something. But anyway, I went in there, and I told him who I was. Well, that Jay, what was his name, a lawyer, Don had already had him call the lawyer. And he met me. And he says, oh, Lois, he said, this makes me so mad. So they took me up to where Don was, and they brought him out of the cell, and I had to talk to him through a little window about this big.
Just like the prison movies, huh?
Oh, he was just done. He just looked like he's almost ready to cry. And so then Jay took me downstairs, and he said, here's all his, they took all his belongings, his billfold, everything, cigarettes, everything. And he gave me all that stuff. And so he said, he'll be out of here in a minute. And so Don come down, and he was quiet. He was shocked. Think of that. He was shocked. I can't remember where that guy said he was speeding. I don't know what he pulled him over for. And so Don and I, we both went out in the car. Here's the kids sitting there. I don't think they ever realized what had happened. I don't know. I thought if I see the welfare woman and I'm down here in the oh my God. And so then, to top it all off, they had put his Corvette. Where do you put him?
The impound lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that Jay told me where to go with him to pick that up. So we went over there and got the car. And that cost, I don't know, $20 or $25 to get that car out. And we went home, and we were just speechless. We didn't know what to think. Well, that guy from the store called again, and he wanted to know what had happened. And he talked to Don, and he says, I'll sure be there in court to talk for you, if it goes that far. And so then the lawyer, they set a hearing, and we went, but that guy never showed up. He never come. And they set another one, and he didn't show up the second time. So that was the end of it. And Don could have sued him.
Yeah, he could have.
They said that he was still on the police force, but he had problems.
Mm-hmm.
And Don didn't sue or anything. He says, well, that's another thing. They fingerprinted him, the whole bit, took a picture. The whole bit. He says, all I want is that taken off of the records. And so they did. They did. And that was the end of it. And it wasn't too many months or maybe a year down in the paper where that guy had died. But I think he was just kind of nutsy. Can you believe that?
No. Hang on just a second. Daniel called me.
Can you believe how I felt, Ricky?
Oh,
but
okay.
Anyway,
You called the family. They
couldn't
couldn't believe about
They
that.
couldn't believe it happened. And we were just in a state of shock to think that something like that could happen.
Well, he's lucky he didn't get sued, or the police
Well,
department.
Don, I'll tell you what, Don wasn't a sue-happy person. He really wasn't. And he should have gotten the money for picking up that car. And he didn't. But what he wanted, he didn't want it on his record. But then I was called for jury duty 3 times. One when I worked the telephone company on a murder thing, and I was there for a month, I think. And we didn't get to make up our minds that he was guilty. But anyway, one of the juries I went to was when I lived out here. And they asked me, have you ever had anybody that's been in, what do they call it, incarcerated or
Incarcerated, yeah.
I sat there and I thought, and I said, no. I didn't know whether to say yes or not. I thought now they'll probably check into it and find out I lied.
Not supposedly that they got rid of the record.
Well, that's the way I felt, but it kind of shocked me when they asked me that, and I felt like I was...
In the Who Scout.
Boy. Well, that murder trial, this woman and some man was been hanging in the bar one evening, and she walked home, and he followed her and killed her.
Mm.
Show the pictures of.
Okay.
What did you say? You want to start on this Truman thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, how did you first hear about that? I mean, you were dating Uncle Don.
Okay. Let's see. Let me see how it started. I guess that whoever checks into backgrounds of people, I guess they had really been checking on him because they had him spotted for that job. And I think you heard this. They just come to him one day and said that he was going to get different duty. Mm-hmm. And before that, he had signed up to go overseas because we were dating, and he would get more money, and he wanted more money.
Gotcha.
And he thought that's where he was going. And then they put him in a car or something and took him over there and stopped the yacht. And took him in, and then he found out that's where he was going to be.
Now, did he know that was the Williamsburg and that was the
I don't know.
when he first got on? I had heard somewhere that he didn't realize.
I bet he didn't.
He didn't realize where he was. I bet he didn't.
But then, that's where he was. I think he's kind of disappointed because he wanted to go overseas and make more money. But then he was on call for 24 hours a day. All this, he told me. And he was okay for a while, and then he got kind of bored with it because it really tied him down, But I can see why he did. To look at Don, I couldn't see how he could ever make it in the service. The way he was a very private person. And I thought, how's he going to stand in line for everything, stand in front of a mirror where there's 20,000 people behind him and sleeping with, I didn't think he'd make it because I just couldn't see him, after I knew him, living like that. And it did but it bothered him on the yacht because it was really
real tight there.
Crowded. And that's when he took his pillow and blanket and went in and slept in the pantry in the kitchen. Yeah, he did that because he was tired of sleeping in these little bunks with all these people. Don never liked crowds, never liked big crowds. And, but he did, tell me about swimming with Truman. Off the side of the yacht. And he was telling, after he gave him these rub downs, that they'd sit and talk and he'd offer him a drink or, whatever. But he was going to the Blair House, not the White House, when he first, I don't know if he went there all the time. I don't think so. I think part of it was over at the White House. But he did go to the Blair House, and he did get to talk to Mrs. Truman and Margaret. And he said Margaret was a lot prettier than her pictures. And he said she was really nice. Of course, so was Mrs. Truman. And I just read, Charlotte, I'll have to show you this, because I told her, I says, Ricky will like this. She found a 1972 Life magazine with Harry Truman's picture on the front, and Margaret had written an article about him after he retired.
Wow. And
it's really interesting. And Don said that he was real easy to be around. I mean, they just comfortable. He made you comfortable when you're around him. Of course, he cussed up a storm.
Both Truman and
Uncle. That probably brought them together.
Yeah.
But he knew history. He loved. Now, I didn't know till I read this article that he either went to some college. I never thought he had a college education.
Okay.
That's what I always heard, but maybe I didn't read it right. But he knew his history, and that's what he liked, back and forward. And Don, they would talk about some kind of an incident, and Don said he'd go back to base and go in the library and see if he was right about what he told about. Can you believe? I tell you what.
Yeah.
Oh, but you read the thing about when he was in there and that guy, that ensign or somebody stuck
Well,
his
yeah,
I
tell
think
that.
that's the funniest
Tell that story again.
thing I ever heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made Truman mad. He did not like
Well,
it.
tell what happened. He was in there.
Don was in.
He was always escorted by that ensign. Wasn't
Yes,
he?
yes, he was the one that
escorted.
always escorted him. And they had a little round hole where they could open and
Little
talk to
porthole, yeah.
and he stuck his head in and asked him if he was all right. And that made Truman mad. Because, why would he do that? But when he did that, he knocked his hat off and it fell inside the room. And Truman said, well, just pick it up, give it back to him when you leave, I think. But when Don left, he picked it up, took it to the office or something. He didn't give it to him because he didn't like that guy for some reason. But that really made Truman mad that he poked his head in there and had to say something. But Don said he'd just sit down and he'd offer you something to eat or offer you a drink. He was just really interesting to talk to. And Don really liked him, and he liked Don. He really did like Don.
What was that story about where you had gone away on a trip or something like that, and you found a letter on the door that he'd come by to visit?
Didn't find a letter. One of the people at the bank called us, American Fletcher Bank. He had come in town. What was that guy's name that was vice president, or can't think of his name, that was over the American Fletcher Bank here in town, up there on the circle. And Truman, they called our phone, and they couldn't get us. And I don't know, he couldn't have called anybody else, but when we got home, somebody from the bank called and said that he'd been looking for us. And he was going to come out. He was going to come back.
Just drop by for a visit.
My God, I would have died. He would have just dropped in.
Now, tell me another story. How did the thing about Beech Grove happen?
Oh, okay.
How'd that all start?
Okay. Don got a 30-day leave, and that was another thing. His dad pushed him to go in the Masons.
Mm-hmm.
And so he finally agreed, and they set it up when they knew he was going to have his 30-day leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so Don was in giving Truman his rub down, and Truman said, what are you going to do on your 30-day leave? He said, I'm going, hopefully, to be taken in the Masonic Lodge. And he was looking at his calendar, and he says, I'm coming through there, and I'll be there. He definitely said he'd be there. Now, they talked like when he was here that they weren't going to let him come out there. I don't know anything about that. They just thought it was just an off-beat trip. They didn't want him to come out. But Don, that's how it happened. Don knew that he was going to try to come in. And then Don and his dad decided they'd go up to Noblesville because that's where he was stopping to speak. And he told Don, he says, if you come up there, wear your uniform so I can spot you in the crowd. So he did. And so then after he gave his speech, he called Don up there, and so your dad, and that's another thing, I don't know. I think they both come back on the train with him, but they drove up there. I wonder how Carmen might know that. But they got on the train, and that's where that letter that you showed me, that Grandma Caldwell, Margaret had sent her corsage. And they come back, and then he told Don, he says, well, I'll see you, And So he come out. That was very unusual.
So did the train go to the Beech Grove Shops area?
I don't know where. I don't know where they stopped off. I don't know whether they went downtown.
I know. And then when did the Secret Service agents come up and talk? What was that all
The
about?
day of, the Secret Service man come out there on Dawson to your folks' house. I don't know why. And Grandma was fixing supper. And she burned it all to pieces. She was so excited.
I heard that she welded the frying pan to the electric burner. That was all together. It was all stuck together.
I know it. I don't know why. Wonder why they would send the Secret Service man out there.
Well, what I'd heard, and I don't know if I got this from Mom or somebody else, is that they were saying that the president is going to come and give you your ring.
Well, maybe that might be.
Gave him a little bit of a lecture.
Maybe he got the ring
about how they couldn't tell anybody, or else the whole thing was off. And I guess Grandpa Marion got on the phone and
everybody knew it.
Asked everybody to go to Blue Lodge and said you better get there, but he couldn't tell them why.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Carmen and your mother and I, we went out there and parked right in front of the lodge, and the Secret Service man sat on the car and talked to us while he was in there. We didn't. I don't think he was already there. I think when we.
By the time you got
there, and I never did see him come out. But we sat out there. We couldn't go up, and so the Secret Service men were real nice. They sat out there and talked to us, and then when it was over, I don't remember when we left, and he had to come out the same way he went in. But he told them, "I'm not president tonight. I'm brother." That's what he told them. And I guess he really knew that stuff because he was over the Washington, D.C. Maine Masonic. Yeah, he really liked the Masons.
He was a Grand Master, I think.
Yeah. And I guess he just put everybody to ease, you know.
Now, were you married at that point, or you were not married yet? You weren't married yet.
48.
Yeah, that's right. You weren't married
yet.
Yeah,
we weren't married. We weren't married. And so, you know, it was a real... But you know what? When Don was going through it, I don't think he was impressed about it as much as he was after he got older. I think, I don't know, it just all happened. And, but you know, it was really something. That was a side trip. They hadn't planned that trip. And they had a little bit of trouble over it. They said, you just can't go. Well, he was like Don. He did. But that was really something. Have you ever been over there to see the plaque on the outside of the building?
Not yet. I know it's right there on Main Street.
I never walked up to look at it. I drove by one time, but I never walked actually. I saw it, but it's out there now. They took quite a while to get it out. But Truman was really everybody's, you know, he wasn't a snob. And oh, I tell you, they were all so excited. He called my dad. My dad went. My dad was there. And they, you know, they were all there. But they said that when he come in there, he just put everybody to ease. He said, just forget I'm president, you know. And he was just, I guess, really nice. But Don knew, you know, he said, you know, he says, well, I'll be there. And by gosh, she did. But he told Don when he left and we were going to get married, he said he wanted to, if he's ever in town, he'd call him. And he did. He did.
And where you guys were out of town or something?
We were up at the lakes with Tom and Joy. We were up there for vacation fishing. We went up there and stayed in a cabin. Yeah, we were gone. I can't remember what month it was. But when we got back, somebody from the American Fletcher Bank called Don and told him that Truman had been looking for him. And so Don wrote him I think you got maybe sorry we missed, or one of them said sorry we missed you. He would have come out to our house. believe that he would drift that
Now, was he
far.
president at that point, or he wasn't?
Yes,
Yes,
no,
he was.
he was
Oh my
president.
gosh! Could you imagine being one of your neighbors, looking out the door, and here's this
I wouldn't want him to see my house, our townhouse.
big long black limo and all these black cars pulling
And you
up?
know, that's another thing, Ricky. Don never told anybody about all that
Hmm.
with him and Truman. Well, it would sound braggy, and he
Yeah.
wasn't a braggy mouth. He really wasn't. Now, your dad tried to tell me that he always wanted to be the center of attraction.
Oh,
He he was outgoing, but I don't think he strived to be the center
Right.
of attraction.
I agree with that. I agree with that. He was just gregarious.
People kind of was pulled to him or something. I don't know what it was.
Mhm.
And but he never, and we'd have people come up and they'd heard about it somewhere. Well, then he would tell them, but he never brought it up to anybody. Probably nobody'd believe it. But I think after Truman, let's see, it was his birthday, and that guy from Indianapolis Star called Don
Thomas Keating,
to
right?
interview him. Yeah, and then when he died, they called again. And then I think Don thought, boy, that was really something, you know. And I called him at work that day and told him there was a write-up in the paper, and he seemed real happy about it. But I think when you're younger, you're going through it, and I think you just don't.
Don't think much about it. I can see Grandma frying the frying pan to the top of the.
Oh my God! She'd get so excited and nervous, and but anyway, that's how he happened to come, because they asked Don what he was going to do, you know. And Truman was really for marriage. She thought marriage was really a good institution.
Yeah, and he sent you that tray in there, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Sent it, you know, for a wedding gift, and it was dented, and Carmen had a fit because we wouldn't send that back to them because it had a dent in it. It still got the dent in it.
I saw it.
Yeah, she just thought that was terrible if that tray was dented, but yeah, he did send the tray, and then, you know, Don wrote him a letter and wanted to go over there and see the library over there, and we took the train over, and I think we had an appointment with him in the morning, and I'll tell you what, Ricky, we were sitting there, when he walked in a room, there was just something about him. He really, what do you call that? He
Charisma.
Yes, that's what he had. Neat smile from ear to ear. And he took us in his office and sat there and talked to us and asked us about getting married and talked to us for a long time.
Hmm.
And then, you know, we had our picture taken with him. And he signed, I think, our other book that we had gotten. But he was just, and Don was, you know, they just acted like old friends. I was scared to death.
Were you scared?
I was. Oh, God. I probably wouldn't have remembered my name if he asked me. That was another thing. I wasn't like Don. He just seemed to, I don't know, he didn't get nervous. He just fit.
Right in.
Yeah. Of course, they'd been around it. They were really around each other for how long? A couple years, I guess.
I'll bet every bit of that.
Yeah, maybe more. I can't get the dates right, but they just, you know, were tickled to death to see each other. He just hugged Don, and I felt like a second shoe or something. But he was really nice, and he was really for, you know, he called his wife the boss.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
And I guess every evening when he went up to the quarters in the White House, she had a drink waiting for him at dinner. She was really a down-home wife, and never really entered into anything too much. But Margaret, you'll have to read. I'll send that home with you. She said some funny things in it, you know, about the both of them. But he was crazy. That's the only daughter, you know, they had. Remember that time that Margaret sang. She was a soprano, and she was okay, but the press gave her an awful write-up. He called and just gave them hell about running his daughter down. She was in some kind of a play or something there, and he was so mad. But he and that daughter were really close, and she's still married to the same man she married. She's been married years and years. Yeah.
So you think she's still around somewhere?
Well, they tried to get a hold of her when they had this last 50th anniversary over here at the lodge. And I can't remember, they wanted her here, but she couldn't come, so she's still around.
Somewhere, huh?
Still around, and I think he is still living. While I'm talking about it, I had that, I'm trying to think where I put that. I probably took it back in my bedroom. I want you to take it home and read it.
All right.
Are you done there? Or?
No.
Oh, you wanted to know first about how it all come about that he come for that lodge thing. And we went over there to Washington, D.C. and visited him. Don took me over. Your folks met him, but I hadn't been over there. I did. I met him. I've met him twice. Once in Missouri and then once at the White House.
Well, tell me that time where Grandpa decided to go in for a visit, just out of the blue in Washington, decided to just walk up to Blair House.
I don't know. Did he do that?
I thought you said something like that where
I don't know.
he and
No,
Uncle...
I think they wrote and asked. Don was going to take him to meet him. And I don't know whether they were at Blair House or White House.
I know he got
He made an appointment to meet him. And the first thing out of the box when he walked in, he says, "Before I sit down, I've got to tell you, I'm Republican."
Wasn't he like the district chairman or something? Republican
Yeah, oh
district?
yeah, he was really Republican, but your grandma was Democrat. And we never did know who he voted for when Truman was up. We never did know whether he voted for him. I bet he voted for him. But he was Republican, and Truman said, "Well, we won't let that bother us," or something. He just, laughed.
Oh,
about
I thought he said, "We'll see what we can do about that."
Yes, that's it. That's it.
We'll see what we can do about that.
Yeah, but wouldn't you know he'd be one that, he was like a little banty rooster. His life would be a good one to write about, too.
Marion's, yeah.
But anyway, yeah, and then Don's dad went over there and spent a week with him in the hospital, in Don's room with him. He was in pig heaven, meeting all those sailors, I guess he just had a
Well, you told me
ball.
that story about him shaving in front of the mirror, and the other sailor says, "How long you in for?"
I tell he was really a character. His dad, he was a character, but he was smart.
Mm-hmm.
And Grandma was a big chain around his neck. He had, when he worked at Allison's, he had a chance to go over, I can't think, it was Ohio or I don't know where, to a real good job. She wouldn't go. She would not go, but it was a real hard job. He was smart. He only went, what? Do you know, about 4th or 5th grade at school?
I don't know. I know he didn't go to high school. I know that much.
Yeah. And when Don was in high school and got into all the math, he sat right with him and learned all of it with him. Learned how to read a slide rule and learned it all with him. He was really, really intelligent. Grandma wasn't any dummy.
No, she wasn't.
No,
she
wasn't.
She was smart as a cracker.
Yeah, she was. She was smart, real good in English. But that dad was something else. But anyway, he really was like a banty rooster, over there meeting Truman. I could just see it.
I thought there was a story you told me where they were driving in the car And he said, I wonder what Truman's doing. And he says, why don't you get out and find out? And he said, jumped right into the Blair
You
house.
must have heard that from someplace else.
Maybe I did.
I didn't tell
Okay.
you that. Maybe he did. He'd walk in where
Maybe it was Mom.
angels, you know.
Fear and dread.
But now Don, he could walk in out of that Blair house and they just let him because they knew
Knew
who he was. Yeah, he could just walk in. And, he asked Truman if he could get out about a week early. And Truman called over to where he was stationed. And the guy that answered come to Don and said, Truman's on the phone.
They probably thought something of that.
And so he told him, he said, he could get out. That was a big one to help him get out about a week.
And that's so you
early.
could get married?
No, let's see. That was in September when he
Yeah.
got out of the Navy.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we got married in June.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. But another funny thing is in 48, we got engaged. I think I told you about that. And I didn't know he was coming home. I went up to Marion with my folks. He come in town and I was gone.
Oh.
And he had my engagement ring.
Oh.
And I didn't know he was going to give me an engagement ring. We never talked about it. But we got home early on Sunday afternoon, and he called, and he come over. And that's when I told you that his face was red as fire. He had washed his face in Climoline. Now,
Which is
why
like
he did that, I don't know.
That's like scouring powder.
His face was just blood red.
Well, you couldn't tell if he was blushing or not.
I don't know. I never heard why he did that. But his face was real. And then he no more got in the house, and here come his folks. And they knew he was going to give me that ring. And we just sat there and visited, and finally they left. He wasn't going to give that ring to me if they'd stayed all night. And so they left, and that's when he gave me my ring. I had no idea, because we'd never talked. He didn't ask me what kind of a ring I might like. Never. I don't know how he got the size.
Well, you just get a 6.5 and go from there.
Well, that might be, but it fit perfect. But
Did he get down on one knee and everything? Do you remember what he said?
No, but he pulled the ring out, No, he didn't get down on one. He'd probably gone through the basement or something. I don't know. But I was shocked. I was really shocked because we really hadn't talked about getting engaged or talked about any marriage plans or anything. I don't know. We just didn't. But I was shocked when I got that ring. And, my mother and dad, after his folks left, they went to bed. And then we were by ourselves. Then he gave it to me. No, he didn't get down on his knee, but he pulled it out, I was really, had no idea.
Well, how long did it take you to say yes?
About a second. Oh, yeah. I was crazy about him, Ricky.
Huh.
I really was. And, but that letter, I hadn't read it, didn't remember it for years, but he said, I feel responsible for you, because he was going to school and I was working, and I thought, that was nice of him to say that. He says, I feel responsible for you, because he knew, but it wasn't. You know what? It wasn't hard. It wasn't. We didn't have much money, but we didn't go hungry. I don't know, but I really never thought about how it would be. I didn't look ahead or something. I just didn't think. Now, your mother told me one time, we were talking, and she says, I thought that I would be living in a house with big white columns.
Yeah.
Really living high, and I said, I didn't even think what I'd be living in, because I never had anything. Well, she didn't either. We never had anything. But she had high ideas. I didn't. I was too stupid to know. I felt like I was really living when I lived in that Windemeyer house. It seemed like a mansion from that. Yeah. But I just didn't have any idea of what. I knew he was going to school.
Now, when he gave you the ring, about when was that? How soon was that before you actually got married?
Okay, he gave me my ring December of 48.
Oh, okay, so then...
Got married in 50
June.
of June.
So you had about 6 months of engagement.
And he didn't get out of the service till 49.
Oh, okay.
No, I had the ring a year and 48. I had it a year and something.
Wow, so you were engaged for over a year.
Yeah, we were.
Hmm.
Leap year, he gave me my ring. It was 1948. No, you know what? I think it was 1949.
Well, we got those receipts we can look at sometime.
Yeah, wonder what it says.
Well, I don't care.
It's just laying out there.
All right.
I was thinking it was.
And Lois, next time, I want to talk about when you got out here to the house and kind of the egg and I effect.
That's another thing.
So
That's another
I want to
thing.
talk about all the critters and.
I always describe us as the Fiji Islanders from the city.